good, Lisa.
All right. So, failure. Maybe you're one of those lucky people who've never experienced it. I think for a good period in my life, I thought I was one of them. Sure, I failed or I didn't do very well at PE and home economics. Well, I can cook a meal, although I never did master the crocheted bookmark, a valuable life skill, that one. Of course, that all changed when along came the dreaded D. The D word. Any ideas what this might be? No? No ideas? It is the dreaded D. Dun 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 dun. The Delta. Now, this was quite a long time ago. This was in 2005. And for anyone who knows me, they're probably saying, oh my goodness, is she still banging on about this? But yes, I am. I'm still deeply scarred. It was back before the modular days. Some of you out there may remember this. So it was the full year of study when they were all the different parts were together. My first essay, I failed. We were shown all of these models of borderline passes and narrow fails, and to be honest, I just didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I was one strike down, if you like, one strike from day one. Then I did my teaching practice, my second teaching practice. The tutor said that was a lovely lesson to watch, and then proceeded to sort of tear it apart for the next hour and a half, at which point, well, that was two strikes, and there was the whole year ahead of me. Anyway, what's the moral of this? A year later, I became DOS. So never underestimate the power of spite as being a powerful, powerful motivator. So, failure clearly is not fun. It brings with it a whole host of negative emotions. It can be painful, embarrassing, stressful. However, there are also a few good things about it too. So, as it's quite early in the morning, and to see if you're awake and paying attention, I thought we'd start off with a little game here. In Australia, we call it Family Feud. I believe others call it Family Fortune. But today, you're going to be playing against me. And so, what do you think are the often overlooked positives of failure? You have 3 strikes before you're out. Any thoughts? Experience. Let me check my list here. Does it fit in there? I think it does go with learning. In fact, you're absolutely right. That is one of them. Experience, most of the time, is a great teacher. Showing a weakness, vulnerability, says Nicole. And again, I think this does fit in. I don't have vulnerability itself as one of the 6 on the list here. Realizing your mistakes. And what's the benefit of realizing your mistakes? I think that comes under a Chiwe as well, self-reflection and questioning. When you fail, your ego is damaged, and so you're in a much more you're in a place where you're willing to question things. When you're doing fine, perhaps you're less willing or less able to do that. I'll move on and reveal what we've got. They buy you chocolate. Okay, I think that's my favourite answer so far, but it's not on the list. Here's other ones that I came up with or that I read about from a number of different sources. You'll see links at the end that you can read on if you'd like to find out more. But resilience, not giving up, that ability to bounce back from negative situations. Again, the scientific method or questioning, where we're in that place where, we're a bit hurt and we're bruised and we're not sure what's going on, and we start to question ourselves. it can be, it can be very painful, but a useful thing to do. And as I said before, not something you do when you think you're right. Growth mindset. I won't say too much about this because I believe Sarah Thompson will be speaking about it later on today. And a lot of you, of course, are already familiar with Carol Dweck's work on this. So a growth mindset. Number 4, I'm not going to try and pronounce this, I think. Let's go with noradrenaline, which apparently is a chemical that floods our brain when we're in high stress situations. Apparently, an upside of this particular chemical is that it widens it opens our mind to new thought, perceptions, and possibilities. And this temporarily may make us more creative, provided we are able not to get overwhelmed by the stress that's involved. Inspiration, trying and failing, perseverance, keeping on going. Well, it inspires others to take risks too. Yeah, you tried it and you didn't die. Everything's still okay. And finally, yes, learning is the upshot that we really want to take away from all of this. So I think your answers were quite well done. So a little happy smiley face for all of you. And I don't think I could possibly put it better than the wonderful J.K. Rowling, who said this. But how does this apply to our students? How can we relate this to them? And how can we help them to see failure in a more positive light? I come across a lot of students these days, I think more than in previous years, who really suffer from bad performance anxiety. And they come into these exam situations and they're so stressed out. Also, Becky spoke earlier and was mentioning the IH client promises, and we have the IH client survey. Now, apparently, one of the areas that we haven't done as well as we'd like on is that tests are used as a tool to help learning. Now, perhaps there's a problem in the wording of this particular promise or the way that the client is interpreting it. But if not, it's a bit of a worry because students are not necessarily seeing how assessment can be used developmentally and to help further learning. And, of course, our major negative is another dreaded D word, demotivation. So, what do we do with the exam or the test or whatever assessment tool we've put in place after we've done it? Let's look at how we can use assessment as a learning tool. Now, here's an example of task repetition that I did with an FCE group recently. And by the way, I'll tell you now, nothing here is revolutionary, but again, just to revise a few of these areas that might be useful. So assessment is a learning tool. You might recognize the task. It's an FCE Part 3 word formation in the use of English. So I gave this test to my students. They got about 3 out of 8 the first time around. So we put all the words, as you can see there, noun, verb, adjective, adverb. We did our little table, and I sent them away to go and study this for homework. And then, of course, we came back again, and I rewrote one of the texts. So just 5 minutes, the texts, as you can see there, are not particularly brilliant or well researched, but using different words in a different order, but working on the same topic area. Okay, so the next time they did it, they got pretty much the same score. They got about 4. And I was quite stern with them and told them, well, why is this? Or asked them, why do you think we did the chart? Did you study it? No, etc. Anyway, the third time around, with the different reworked text again, we got about 6 and 7s out of 8. So again, I think the useful thing here was that they did take away that message. Sometimes teachers say, or I've heard teachers say, well, they can't do the test again. They'll learn the answers. They'll cheat. But surely that means that they're learning something. Maybe that's just me. Anyway, assessment as a learning tool. So task repetition in whatever form that may take. Question time after they've done the exam, perhaps having the time for individual questions within the class, or maybe taking the exam home and looking at it and being able to formulate their questions that they can then come back with. Because again, sometimes it takes time to process that and work out exactly what questions they want to ask. Individual tutorials are absolutely great. There was some wonderful work that Silvana Richardson was presenting at a conference earlier in the year, which showed how you can really utilize tutorials and personalize them to individual learning needs and give that specific advice for how students can improve. I think they really appreciate that, and it's also that opportunity to reassure them that failure, we perhaps don't want to use that word, but that it's okay, and how they can make an improvement on the performance that they just had. Something that I read about was called blank questions, and I recall doing this on a biology exam in high school, which is kind of crazy, but the idea of a blank question is that you allow the student to write a question that they can confidently answer. So they write their question, they answer it, and again, okay, maybe it can't count towards the formal assessment. However, it shows something that they've learned, and perhaps that can allow us as a teacher to have a greater insight into the areas that interest them, and perhaps, why was it that they learned that particular thing and not another? Which leads to high quality corrective instruction. The article that mentioned this said this is not just saying it louder and slower. It is about finding what works for individual students and differentiating the learning process for them. Sorry, I'll just go back to analysing the study habits or exam wrappers. These are looking again, okay, what part of the exam did you do poorly in, or where could you stand to improve? How much time did you spend studying this area? And so it's really looking at what the student has done in this to improve, or perhaps they haven't done enough work and they need the support to be able to do so. And finally here we have our second chances to demonstrate success, doing it again and again and again until eventually it's been learnt. So I think one of the problems with this is that learning can sometimes be very difficult to see. It's often, very slow, and making the learning visible for students is quite difficult to do. Here are a few of the ideas that I had with regards to, they're not all up there. Oh no, they're very faint on my screen. Perhaps you can see them there. What ideas do you have for making learning visible? One of the ones that is here, portfolios, could be for speaking or writing. And what's nice here is that you have a record of the work at the start of the course, and that can be compared to the end of the course, where hopefully in conjunction with your high quality instruction and analysis of study habits and all of the things that we were just looking at a moment ago, will show a distinct improvement over that period of time. Success criteria, one of those things that I didn't have or didn't feel I had enough of on the Delta, where I didn't know what to do. So make those success criteria visible to the students. It shouldn't be a mystery. What is it that they need to do? Do they have to use three examples of the present perfect and the vocabulary items that we studied in the last module? be specific. Why not? Give them all the support that you possibly can. We can have personal flashcard sets. I know a lot of people use Quizlet to very good effect, and that can either be the online version or the physical version. I mean, it depends on the student and what kind of thing they like best. I've always liked the old school little paper cards that you can flip like that and, you know, keep in your pocket when you're standing in the supermarket queue and you're a bit bored. Having the aims or your running order for the class on the board can also help to help students see if they have managed to do those things today, and to reflect on, you know, whether or not they feel that they've mastered them, if they've just, you know, started on their journey. Peer and self-evaluation were another ones that you could also bring in the success criteria that you've set, and then let them comment on each other's work. And finally, some regular quizzes as well. What's that one that everyone loves? Kahoot, of course. Nothing like a good Kahoot to get all of the class involved and excited in things. Regular tests, absolutely. I think, Maura, regular tests are invaluable. It doesn't have to be a big formal thing. It could be just a little 10 question pop quiz, or, you know, a lot with the mini whiteboards, and they write their answers on and hold it up. It can also be quite fun and allow them to see what they know and what they don't know, and which things we as teachers need to revisit and revise perhaps in a different way, because we do need to see things a number of times and in a number of different contexts to be able to fully grasp them. A few other little ingredients then that perhaps might be useful for success. Expectation management. You know, let students know what is reasonable to expect. You know, they're maybe not going to get 100% tomorrow, and that this learning does take time. Build their self-esteem as well, that they can do it. This, I think, is really important, that descriptive praise of saying, okay, well, yeah, you've got that many correct. And believing in them and that they can do it. Because if you don't believe in them, well, it sort of becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, some students, as I say, spite can motivate, and the wanting to prove someone wrong. But for the most part, you know, the power of belief can go a long way. And that there's the wonderful talk there, as you can see, by Rita Pearson, about every kid needing a champion. I'm sure many of you have seen it, but it's worth watching again, because it is a great message. As she says, you know, minus 18 sucks all the life out of you, but getting 2, you know, 2 with a little smiley face there says, you know, I'm not all bad. Learner training and strategies. You know, learner autonomy, giving students the tools that they need to be able to achieve success is extremely important. Feedback, it needs to be regular, it needs to be frequent, and it needs quite often to be immediate, so that it's, you know, I know we do a lot of delayed error correction in the classroom too, but for some, you know, they've forgotten that they even said that. It's like, was that me? Did I say that? So sometimes the immediacy of the feedback is very important too. And finally, making it personal, showing the students that you care about them, relating it to their interests, their life experience, and their needs. Perhaps above all, what we need to do is to be creating an environment where, you know, not getting it immediately or taking time to get it is perfectly okay. So, rather than it being a simple matter of pass or fail, maybe we need to see it ourselves, and to help our students see this more as a climb. Learning is incremental, and, you know, we fail at things every day, but they're often not so high stakes, so it doesn't register. Instead, maybe it's more helpful to see things on a kind of experimentation, of reflection, progress, and perhaps regression. These things happen. So, I guess the question is, did you get anything useful out of that? Oh, there's no typing. Everyone's gone to sleep. So in that case, perhaps then I have failed. But never mind. It's been wonderful to see so many of my wonderful colleagues, both from the school here at IH Reggio Calabria and around the whole network. And I'm sure it's going to be a great day full of learning ahead. So thank you very much for listening. I think we've got a couple minutes for questions if anyone has one. And if not, it will be briefly back over to Sean.
Hi, Lisa. It's actually over to you because I'm going to look after the other room.
Oh, okay. That's true. It's over to me. So no questions there. Teacher or psychologist, nice to see you, Coco. What can I say? I reflect a lot these days. Mara, you have your hand raised. Do you have a question? I'm going to turn off the recording, I think, at this point here, and we'll